You've always felt like you were being watched, but you could never quite put your finger on it. Then, you realize that your neighbor across the street is always staring at you, no matter what time of day it is. You start to find evidence that they've been going through your trash and following you when you're out and about. It's clear that they're obsessed with you, and you begin to fear for your safety. It started with a feeling of unease. Every time I stepped outside my house, I had the nagging sensation that I was being watched. At first, I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to paranoia. But as time went on, the feeling only grew stronger. One day, as I was walking home from work, I noticed my neighbor across the street standing at their window, staring at me. It was a strange look, intense and unyielding, and it made me shiver. I tried to brush it off as a coincidence, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over the next few weeks, the staring became a regular occurrence. Every time I walked down the street, my neighbor was there, watching me. I tried to avoid eye contact, but it was impossible to ignore the sensation of being followed. Things took a turn for the worse when I started to find evidence that my neighbor had been going through my trash. At first, it was just a torn envelope or a discarded receipt, but then I found a stack of old photographs that I had thrown away. They had been arranged in a neat pile, and it was clear that someone had been looking at them. That's when the fear set in. I started to look over my shoulder every time I left the house, constantly scanning the street for any sign of my neighbor. And then, one night, I caught them in the act. I was walking home late from a friend's house, and I saw my neighbor crouched behind a parked car, watching me as I walked by. I ran the rest of the way home, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that my neighbor was obsessed with me, and I didn't know what to do. I was too scared to confront them, and I didn't want to involve the police unless I absolutely had to. For months, I lived in fear, never knowing when my neighbor might strike next. It was a constant source of stress and anxiety, and I found myself becoming more and more isolated. But then, one day, my neighbor moved away, without a word of explanation. It was a relief to see them go, but the memory of their obsession still lingers. I don't know what drove them to fixate on me, but I know that it's something I'll never forget. And I'll always be on the lookout for the next stalker, lurking just around the corner.